Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Don Morrison, the Calm Professional, here with you today. I am so glad you took the time out of your schedule to come hang with us today to see what we're talking about, because we have something great for you. Recently, a good friend of mine, you guys may know him, Lloyd Sellenberger of the Military Historian Podcast, reached out and he wanted to do an interview about what it was like for me being an undercover narcotics agent. So we did just that. We put an interview together for you here. I hope you enjoy it. If there's anything that you would like to know more, please leave a comment below. In the end, just remember, be respectful. That's all we ask. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be something that we will continue on. So I would say stay tuned for more episodes that come across with some of the things that people don't know about what it's like to be undercover and what it's like to work in the narcotics field. So I can't wait for you to hear this one. Let's buckle up and get ready to go. I'll see you in a minute.
In the art of war, Sun Tzu argued that foreknowledge, the ability to know the enemy's situation and intentions before a conflict, is the single most important factor for a leader to strike and conquer. Now, I'm not talking about wartime espionage. I'm talking about something that's happening right now in the streets of America. I'm joined by Don Morrison from the Calm Professional Podcast, a man who spent years as a soldier and as something equally dangerous, an undercover narcotics officer. Don, welcome to the show.
Hey, Lloyd. Thank you for having me on here today, man. Look, I never really thought about it till you just mentioned it about espionage and narcotics, but I guess it kind of goes hand in hand if you really look at it.
It sure does. I mean, literally, Sun Tzu put a whole chapter 13, talking about espionage and intel. And he obviously thinks it's the most important thing you can do. You have been in the situations. Before we dive in, though, give me a quick orientation. What is the Calm Professional Podcast? What's it about?
Okay, so the Calm Professional Podcast, I get that a lot, man. So let me break it down for you. The Calm Professional means that there's been a lot of stuff that I've been through in my career that most people, if they were to be going through it, would probably cause a lot of anxiety. But the key to it, though, is that no matter how tough or how crazy the situation might get, you always, always, always have to remain calm so that you can achieve your outcome that you're trying to get to.
Well, how does an officer become an undercover narcotics officer? I mean, where does it start? I mean, obviously you have to graduate from the academy. And in your particular case, you have a background in the military and CID. So this isn't something entirely new to you. Did you do this in the CID as well?
A little bit. The CID has what was called back in the day DST, which is Drug Suppression Team. So I worked with the Drug Suppression Team really before I got to CID, and I was an MP. But that was back in the early years, actually before even I became an undercover officer, where we were working in Tazar, Hungary, and Croatia. If you remember that time of the yeah. So obviously, anytime we go deploy our soldiers anywhere, there's still going to be a set somewhere in that country that's going to try to sell them drugs and have illegal narcotics in our ranks. And that's something that we couldn't have. So, hey, I was there. I was undercover there working as well. So I started really there.
Is that a lesson we learned from Vietnam when so many people came back?
Oh, man, yes.
Addicted to morphine sometimes.
Yes. Heroin, morphine, all kinds of stuff. So I think we took a little bit of the knowledge that we learned from there, and we said, hey, or the government said, hey, look, we're not going to have our soldiers over there getting caught up in the mix.
So do you volunteer? Are you recruited? Or is this something you fall into?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, that's a great question.
It's a little bit of all of it, really. So for me, it was something that I wanted to do and this was really, I got into undercover when I was in my civilian side of the house. So it was something that I have seen people do before, and I said, you know what, that looks interesting. I want to kind of do it. And the crazy part is, if you remember the movie Bad Boys,
yeah,
it had just come out, so I was like, man, I think I could do that. That looks fun.
That looks cool. I got to do that.
Not knowing that, hey, it's not the same, but
not the same.
I kind of went into it, and I met a guy who was in our narcotics department at the time, and we and him started talking. He was like, you should apply and come on over. So I took it to heart. I was like, well, what could I lose? So I applied, and next thing you know, they're like, hey, you got picked. Come on over, and you're going to be working undercover.
Now, I got to ask you something. What kind of psychological screening happens before someone gets to go undercover? And because from military intelligence standpoint, we know that the wrong person in that role can be catastrophic. But why does that also apply to the civilian side as well?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Why?
So what happens is beforehand, you have to go through an interview panel. And in that interview panel, they're going to ask you all kind of questions about, where you've been, how some psychological questions. Now, before we even get hired with a sheriff's department or any law enforcement agency, you're going to go through a psychological eval regardless. So they're going to know a little bit about you before you even get there. But once that came to fruition, I had to go through a whole entire process, man. Like I had to go in and meet the team or the executive team. And they would gruel him, and any type of interview that you go to, you're gonna be nervous. And I got in there, man, and they were like, "Okay, tell us about your background. Where have you been? What have you done? What would you do in this situation? What would you do in that situation?" And then I was fine with those questions, but then I think at the time my LT jumped up and he was like, "Okay." Then he said, "I want you to buy drugs for me."
Ooh, by the way, those are called situationals, which you'll get in every psychological evaluation, every intro into a police department. Mm-hmm. And how old were you when you went into that situation? How old were you then?
I was probably 20, my late 20s, probably 28, 29, somewhere.
Okay, that's actually pretty good because you find that the older you get, situationals become easier.
Yeah, well... Not for somebody who never done or seen drugs, because I came from a pretty modest background. I never saw drugs. Drugs never really around me. So I knew what they were. I knew what marijuana smelled like. But when you went past what marijuana smelled like, I had no clue. I didn't know what crack cocaine looked like. Never seen cocaine. Didn't know any of that stuff. So I had to do some studying before I went to that interview board.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Now, there are different kinds of undercover. And basically, what I came up with is a list from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. Well, so it's got to be accurate if MIT did it. Yeah. So here's what they say. There are 5 different types. And tell me which one you would see a narcotics officer under.
Okay.
Local spies or informants, recruited from the enemy's own people, inward informants, officials within the enemy's government, converted double spies or informants, enemy spies turned into allies with bribes or better treatment, doomed, I don't know if I want to be this one, doomed or dead informants used to plant false information that they accidentally let the enemy discover. And sometimes I bet you those are the bad guys that you want to sacrifice anyway. And then finally, living, surviving spies or informants, those who physically go to the enemy and return with reports. What does a narcotics officer do? Is it a little bit of all of them or just some of them?
You know what? I think the last one sums up narcotic officers the best. But,
living, survivor, spies or informants.
Yep, because we're coming in and we're getting information about where drugs and whatever their habits are, and then we're bringing it back. We're reporting it internal, and then we're taking action. Now, those others, pretty much every single one of those, are what we would call our informants, or we call them snitches. That is how we would get snitches. It seems like you hit on every one of those that you hit is exactly why people would come and become paid informants to the sheriff's office or to whatever. And just remember, not only the sheriff's office, but pretty much every law enforcement agency is going to have it. We have it at the federal level, which is DEA. We have it at your local and city levels, which are your city police departments and your sheriff's offices. And then some state police offices or SBIs, depending on who, or State Bureau of Investigations, depending on where you are. But all of those guys are going to be in this same arena.
Now, what are the traits that make someone well suited for undercover work? Just as importantly, what traits should disqualify someone immediately?
Well, so to be a good undercover, first of all, you have to be able to think really quick on your feet, really quick, because at any given time, you can be confronted with a situation, and we have our parameters. So you can only go so far. But once you hit that parameter, then what do you do? And you've got to be able to think your way and talk your way out of that. On the other side of that coin, if you have a person that is probably not the most, that doesn't have the most integrity, that has an issue with maybe financial issues or something like that, that's probably not going to be that person, because you're going to be around a lot of money that doesn't belong to you, and you have to turn that in. You cannot take it no matter what.
Now, is that part of the cover identity, or is that just something that you get tested on, and the cover identity is something you get checked upon to make sure that you fit who you say you are?
So that's a very important part too. So once you come up with your cover, you better know it, because you're going to live it.
That's called the legend, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Because if you mess that up in any way, or if you jump out there, and I give you an example, sometimes we used to be on an aircraft and we would be flying somewhere, and we had to have a cover story. As you know, we have law enforcement that fly on commercial planes. So you have to know what your cover story is, and you need to be able to back it up. So I would tell new agents coming in, hey, don't go out and say you're a dentist if you don't know anything about dentistry, because you could very well be sitting beside a dentist and you start saying that and they ask you questions, and real quickly your cover falls apart.
Wow. So you basically have to be on 24/7 with whoever you're with.
It's on 24/7. You have to live it, know it, breathe it. It is you.
Wow. Now, what about the question of, like, for example, touching drugs or participating in a criminal activity to maintain your cover? What are the legal and ethical boundaries behind that, and what does that essentially mean?
Well, if you look at TV, you can take a little bit of cocaine, you can take a little bit of marijuana, just as long as it's a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Well, in reality, you can't take any of it.
Oh,
so
okay.
You better not smoke it, snort it, taste it, do any of that, because we would get there are parameters that we could go to, but you cannot engage in criminal activity, because even with us, to keep us, making sure that we don't fall off the wagon, we get random drug tests. So you better not come up hot on any drug test, because it's not going to be good for you.
You're trying to bust the leader of a cartel, but you can't sit down and have coke with the man. I don't know about that.
You better learn how to figure it. You better figure it out real quick of how you make it look like. There's some methods that you can do to make it look like you do something, but you really don't.
Really? Okay, I did not know that. Now, you mentioned the pressure on your identity. What does it actually feel like psychologically to live two different lives? What does that do to you?
When I first came into it, Lloyd, I thought that I was like, man, this is going to be fun. I get to be somebody else. But what happens is it's a lot of pressure, because you're living one identity. But once you go home for the afternoon, or once you go home and you're with the family or whatever, that identity is still attached to you. So if you go out somewhere, let's just say you go out to eat and somebody sees you, well, that identity that you have on the street is still there. So they see you as, hey, there's Chris who's on the street. I bought some dope from him the other day. That's Chris. So let me go speak to him. So you got to be able to keep it on and know that, okay, now I've got to come up with a cover story that I'm with my family now. Who is this and why am I here? And so it becomes kind of taxing on you, because you have to live it.
Well, I would say so. You mentioned your family. How do family, the wives and children, cope with all this? Because I remember watching an article on crime and murder, in which the wife got so fed up with the husband's undercover work, he called the bar where he was at and told them he was a cop, and it led to his death. Now, that's an extreme case.
Yeah.
But how much, I would imagine you can't tell the wives and children a whole lot, because it makes them targets as well.
There's some things you can say. You can kind of talk about your day in generalities, but there's some things that you don't want them to be a part of, because it just keeps them safe. It keeps them out of harm's way. And to your point, you do not want to have your family, while you're out walking around or at a movie theater somewhere, you do not want to have them be approached. And it's happened to me. Now, luckily, when I was in my undercover part of life, I was single, but I was dating my now wife. And the good part is she was in law enforcement too, so she kind of understood it. But for somebody whose spouse may not be in law enforcement, it can be a little bit tough because they don't understand kind of what you're doing. And there's times when you're going to be out, or you may come home with some perfume on you or whatever the case may be. And it wouldn't be nothing crazy, maybe because somebody hugged you or that was part of the deal, but the sin is now on you. So you have to explain that. And you think a woman wants to hear, well, there's some perfume on you and she didn't, it's not hers? Yeah,
no, I don't think she wants to. Now, there's a concept called military psychology called moral injury. What is that?
So it really comes back to when you start talking about moral injury. This is where we're going to talk about what happens when you start going over or you start crossing the line a little bit. And I'll be honest, when I got into narcotics, it was because of that. That's how I got there. The person that was there before me crossed the line and did some things that he shouldn't have done. And basically, well, let's just call it out. Basically, they got some reports that he was stealing money on search warrants. So, and a search warrant is when we go into a house and we're searching we have probable cause to go in there because of something that's been bought in there before, or we've actually saw drugs being brought in and out. So we get a probable cause warrant. We do a search warrant. We go in the house. We look. Well, this particular person had some complaints that they were taking money during search warrants. So what they did was they marked some money, put it in the house. We did a search warrant or they did a search warrant on it. And when they came back to the office, they were like, "Hey, empty your pockets." He emptied his pockets, and there was the marked money.
Yep. We've had that actually with the sheriff's department here in Los Angeles at one time or another.
It happens at pretty much all departments.
Well, I wouldn't have known that. But that's called basically being on the take.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, kind of.
And it doesn't take very long for a police department to figure that out, does it?
No. Look, the one thing that I would tell anybody who's maybe in law enforcement and thinking about getting going into narcotics, or somebody who is maybe not in law enforcement but may want to do it in the future, is that the one thing you can count on is that the bad guy or the criminal will tell on you if you take their money, their dope, or anything. If you're unscrupulous, they will tell on you quick.
And let me guess, they'll cut a deal just to make sure you go to jail.
Well, sometimes there may be some opportunities for them to help work off, or to maybe help limit their sentence a little bit if they give up, information. And if they have it, they're going to tell it.
How does an officer who generally started out doing the right thing end up corrupt? I mean, it seems like it happens a lot.
That's a very good question. And what happens, Lord, remember what I told you is, as you live this personality every day, you actually live it. You become it, and it becomes you. And the longer you stay undercover, the more apt you are to become the character that you are now trying to portray. I found it happening to me where I could see, like, not that I would get it, I was stealing money or doing any of the narcotics, but I could see my mindset or my temperament changing to what my undercover person was. And it's not the same temperament that I have as a person.
I think everybody who's ever worn a uniform, whether it be a police officer, military, or firefighter, I can honestly say when I put on a military uniform, who I am as a military person is completely different from who I am as a civilian.
Right. But those are some good things, though, because you're talking about responsibility. You're talking about, esprit de corps, all of those things that are good. That's why people join the military. But when you are living, breathing, operating in a environment that's corrupt, you're going to eventually become corrupt if you do not get out. So, I always recommend that, hey, if you're in there, if you're going to be undercover, completely undercover, be in there for a couple of years, like no more than 3 to 4, and then come out, take a break. And then if you want to go back in, go back in. But don't stay, because it's going to stick to you and it's going to become you if you're not careful.
Right. And it actually can end up being a situation where you have moral disengagement. Essentially, whatever your beliefs are, you somehow learn to ignore them. Mm-hmm. And boy, that pile of money, that $10,000 looks pretty damn good. So I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
Is there a point of no return where once you've gone to that point, you can never come back?
I would like to say no, because you can always come back, but it's going to be at a cost.
Okay.
That cost is going to be your career or your freedom.
Let's say an officer's undercover and he's handed $10,000. He doesn't want to look suspicious. Would he take it and then turn it for evidence?
He's handed $10,000.
$10,000 just because the boss wants to give him an advance because he likes him. This is a corrupt organization. They sell drugs. $10,000 to them is like $1 to you and me. And they hand that undercover narcotics officer $10,000, not knowing just to see if they can buy his loyalty. Would he take it and turn it into to his superiors?
If he's smart, he better.
If
because
he doesn't,
once that other guy once you take that money from him, you now belong to him, and he can do whatever he wants.
And it'll all come out eventually when they start prosecution. I gave him $10,000 on this particular day, and then they're going to go back and go, look, I don't see $10,000 turned into evidence.
There's plenty of look. I have plenty of friends that go down under this. If you're on. And there's a episode I think it's on YouTube, but it was on TV too, called The Tarnished Badge, where we had some friends of ours in the next county over that good guys, but they got caught up, man. And at the end of the day, they all went to jail.
What should the agencies be doing systematically to catch this earlier? Mandatory rotation was one of them you told me about.
So look, I think our department did a real good job because they were doing random drug testing. That always, if you don't know where it's coming, then you don't know. So it keeps you on your toes.
Yep.
And anytime we did anything, so as a narcotics officer, we get a sum of money. It could be a couple of $1,000s that we carry, and that's to buy narcotics. So, but we have to keep a ledger. We actually have to account for every single dime of that money. So the checks, the audits on your money, the random drug test, or any other type of precautionary procedure that a department can employ, definitely do it, because you want the objective is to keep the officer honest, right? And again, if you're around millions of dollars and you never had millions of dollars, is the temptation going to be there? Of course.
Oh yeah.
Can that moral compass get warped? Of course it can, but it takes strong individuals, and this is why you go through the psychological eval before to say, nope, this is not my money. And you have to know that bad money only begets bad things. So if you take it, you're not gonna enjoy it long.
You're not. You're right. Bad only gets worse. And the bottom line of it is nothing you can do can make things better once you've already stepped over that line.
Exactly.
Close calls and near misses. You have actually been in situations where your cover may have been blown, right?
I've been in some were self-inflicted, but yeah, I have.
What's that like, and what's the first sign that your cover may be blown?
So I will give you one that I know for a fact. I don't know what I was thinking that day, but I came out of the office. I was going to do an undercover buy. And I get there, and I kind of got on a net shirt, it's kind of like a baseball jersey, but it's the netted with the holes in it. And I'm sitting in the house. I'm ready to buy it. I'm ready to buy that. I think I was buying some crack cocaine. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to do this. Come on. And I look down, having to look down at my chest, and I'm like, uh-oh, I forgot to take my badge off. And my badge is up under my shirt.
Holy moly.
So I'm up here, I'm trying to flip it around. To get it done. But luckily for me, at that particular time, everybody was high in the house. They were smoking crack like it was. And that was, look, I'll be honest, that's something that was new for me because though I portray doing drugs, I never did. So to see people actually smoking crack, I was like, wow, these jokers are zombied out in here.
It's a good acting lesson, isn't it?
Man, look, that is what you really have to become. And you have to know that you have to act like an award-winning actor because your life depends on it.
Well, what's the protocol when you actually are outed and you need extraction. What's the protocol to that?
So we never went anywhere without a plan. We always had an operational plan, just like the military. We had an operational plan of what we're going to do. So we talk about comms. We talk about how we're going to be talking to one another, how my team would, even though I was out there, I had a surveillance team on me, how they were going to know if something wrong, what was the code words that they would hear, where were they going to be positioned so that I would know how long it was going to take for them to come get me if something happens. So we would go through all of that. But if you actually know, if we're in an operation and there's something that comes out or we get intel that says, hey, they know that you're undercover and they're just waiting, they're gonna pull you away. They're not even gonna let you go back. And
so anticipation and being anticipatory is essential to figuring out what somebody may or may not do and having a plan when they do it.
Exactly. Look, you learn how to read people, and you can tell when people are starting to back off of you if they've never been with you before. And I mean, there's been times where I was going to a specific house, and I get there, and I've been there several times and bought cocaine from them a lot. Well, I get in there this particular night, and it's in a barn. And when I walk in the barn, there's a big guy at the door. He has a 4x4, probably 4-foot piece of wood that he puts in behind the 2 metal brackets that are now in the door, so that it can't be broken down easily. And he's like, "Come on in," and he closes and puts that bracket in. And now I'm like, "Uh-oh, why is this different? What's going on?" And the other part about that was, we were in an area where my surveillance team, the comms on it was very spotty. So the communication between us and them, it could go out at any time. And I was like, uh-oh, they might not be able to hear me. So now I'm thinking, okay, where can I escape from if I have to? And really, who do I need to shoot first to get out of here?
I like that. I like that thought.
Yeah, that's it becomes them or me at that time. So you know which one I'm picking.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you. Now, after a period of time, whether it be months or even years, being undercover as a narcotic agent, you have to come home. And we've seen this even in the military when Special Forces came home, especially at Fort Bragg. They never left the war behind, and they ended up killing family members. Well, that's an extreme example of what happens when you don't decompress. So what is the decompression methods that narcotics officers use when they get home?
Really, to be honest, Lloyd, there's really not any. You have to self-implement and know. You have to really ground yourself back out and say, okay, look, job is job, work is work. I'm not this person. I have to do this. And then even when you leave narcotics for, you're moving on, you promote out or whatever the case may be, it takes a little bit because you have to come out of that mode and come out of that personality that's now that's been woven into you. You got to get rid of that.
Well, how do you actually rebuild a clear sense of who you are? What things do you do to make that happen, to bring back the old Don Morrison?
Well, you know me, Lloyd. I'm a happy-go-lucky type of guy. So for me, it was just being around, family, talking about stuff that happened. And it's, look, the other piece is you have to have an outlet, that somebody that you can talk to, whether that's another agent, whether that's your, if that's somebody at your family that you can talk to. It helps because it helps you to stay grounded and remember who you really are, and remember that, hey, this is just an act. This is not for real. This is, as we used to say as kids, these are play. So you're not that same guy who your fake driver's license says you are.
Oh, okay. What does Hollywood usually get wrong about? Because we've all watched Crockett and Tubbs, and we've all watched
Bad Boys.
All these guys on TV. What does Hollywood get wrong about that?
Well, we typically don't solve any case in 45 minutes or an hour and a half. So it takes there are cases that go on for years. Mm-hmm. Now, you have your different levels of undercover. You have people who we call the street buyers, or the street team, who go out and buy a rock or hit somebody with, a nickel bag or whatever the case may be. But we were not that type. We were conspiracy, and we were always about federal charges that we were going to come across. So if it wasn't felonies, we weren't looking at it. So that means if you want trafficking, a conspiracy to traffic, or any of that, we really were not looking. But those trafficking charges take years to build sometimes. You've got to get kilos for years so that you can show the consistency. And basically, you have to track it all down. And it's not an easy process because you try to work it back to where the supplier is coming from.
Sure. Absolutely. Do you ever feel genuinely affected by or sympathy towards the people you actually eventually end up arresting? Do you ever feel sympathy towards them?
Sometimes you do, because look, we all know we all have family members who've been on narcotics, man, and they get hooked on it. But at the end of the day, those people are out there profiting on other people's sicknesses. So you feel bad from a human element, like you could have made a better choice, but you didn't. But as far as breaking the law and doing what they're doing, no.
How do you feel about the accusation, which, by the way, is generally one of the major defenses for this is entrapment? That comes up a lot, doesn't it?
Oh man, yeah, that comes up quite a bit. But to be honest, entrapment doesn't really work in narcotics world.
Oh, it doesn't.
We didn't give you the dope. We didn't tell you to go sell it. So now, when you're talking about entrapment, typically that's when a law enforcement agency where I come and say, "Hey, Lord, how you doing? You've been a model citizen. Now take this cocaine and go sell it." That's entrapment. Now, if you were already selling it before I met you, that's not entrapment.
Yeah, that seems to be a little bit ironic, not ideal.
Yeah. So we don't give you the stuff we don't give you the tools to go commit crime. But if we did do that, that is where entrapment comes into play.
So we both know that the military and the police tend to have a graveyard sense of humor, a little tougher on people when it comes to what they expect them to do. They're not sitting down with you and having tea and singing Kumbaya. It's not going to happen.
No, sir.
Okay, and cookies and milk, not going to happen.
No.
So what do you generally do when you have done this undercover work and you have had to deal with all this stuff for maybe 6 months to a year in a case? You want to talk to somebody about it, but your supervisor's probably not the one you want to talk to, is it?
It just depends on your supervisor. Look, when you're in narcotics, it's a very small world. So everybody's tight. It really goes back to if you wanted to equate it to the military, your special ops teams that are very small and in membership and very tight. That's kind of how this is, because you're the only ones that you really can talk to. Everybody else, if you were to go talk to any other, let's say police officer or whatever in your department, then that you risk giving out whatever information is that you have.
And you don't know who's on the take either.
You don't know who's who. So, and you don't know who knows who.
The Sinaloa cartel, and this is one of the shows I was planning on doing, they have long arms. Mm-hmm. And even in some of the law enforcement agencies, and we now see locally and nationwide on the judges' benches. The judges are now facing expulsion and possible jail time for helping cartels.
Yeah.
So if you start talking to any police officer other than the people undercover who have been vetted, you have no idea if they have anybody in cartel.
You just don't know. You don't know. Look, you heard me say this before. In God we trust. Everybody else we verify.
Well, that makes perfect sense to me. Now, before you go in, you have a clear and pretty much a sense of what you're going to do and what you're going to accomplish. You have a list of goals, and those goals are not necessarily to get somebody, but to expose the truth. Like any good investigator, you go where the facts take you, not where you think they should take you.
Exactly.
And in this particular case, when you go in undercover, what are you looking for?
Once you go in undercover, look, we're looking for where did we get this? Where did this come from? So who's brought this in? Somebody had to bring it. And where is that shipment coming from? So we start at the lowest level or whatever level we can get in on, and we work our way up. So we try to get all the way to either where the distributor is or where the manufacturer is, if we can find it, which it typically is going to be in another country. So we can only go so far until we partner with DEA. And a lot of times we do partner with DEA and they help us on cases, but we work it all the way to the top. So we'll take your middleman dealer if we can get him. And then, hey, where did he get that supply from? And it takes, this is why it takes years, because we can be working with one guy for a couple of years and then he has to go to jail. Well, in order for him to possibly not get life, maybe he says, you know what, I'm going to help you guys out to kind of help me out a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then we start working it from there.
Well, obviously, you have spent your time doing this. Now, the Calm Professional podcast is really good, extraordinary stuff, because we can really actually get an insight into military operations and police operations. And you're also a pilot, too.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to go up one day and go flying with you one day just to have some fun.
Well, hey, anytime, you're welcome. And if you don't like it, you can always step outside and take a break.
Where can we find the Calm Professional on what platforms?
Oh, before I get there, you didn't catch that, did you?
I did, but I'm not going to touch that.
So you can find the Calm Professional. We're on Instagram at the Calm Professional.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook under my name, Don.Morrison. And I'm on YouTube. The Calm Professional.
You and I are in the same places.
Yeah, man. Look,
and you're about to go on to Apple. I mean, Apple and other places right now, because I'm also on the Military Historian is also on
iHeart.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
Look at you.
Wow. I was trying to remember that for a second there. I had a blank, and now. I'm going to leave the audience with this one, because this is true about everything in life, but it's particularly true when you have to face off with the bad guys.
Right.
And it says here, if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. Okay, so you go in, you know that you're strong-willed, strong-minded, and you will not bend to the temptations as an undercover officer. You know you're dealing with the bad guy. You know who they are. Now, if you know yourself, but you're ignorant of the enemy, and you better not be ignorant of these guys, because cartels are one of the few places in life on any country now that I can honestly put on the map that may be permanent, and we may not be able to get rid of them. We don't know. It's a big if.
Right.
Now, if you neither know yourself nor the enemy, which would be the drug dealers and the criminals, you have very little hope of winning that situation.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, I'm saying this to people when it applies to everything across the board. If you had to give a closing thought about being a narcotics officer, and what part of that would you say to somebody who's thinking about going into that as a career?
Look, I would tell you, if that's something that you really want to do, go for it. Definitely go for it. You have to remember, though, that when you go into that, kind of like the Calm Professional, you have to remain calm when all else around you goes crazy. Kind of like when the guy with the 4x4 puts it behind the door. I don't freak out. I just got to go crazy. In my mind, I'm thinking what's going to happen next. I'm running through scenarios ahead of time before they happen so that I'm ready for them. But if this is something you want to do, do it. But you have to also remember this. You have to know yourself, as you said earlier. You have to tell yourself right off the bat, no matter what happens, I will always do the right thing when nobody else is looking.
Absolutely. And that's actually the biggest test that we can have as human beings, just as people who we view ourselves as people with good character. When we do things when nobody's looking, that tells you everything about somebody's character. Now, I've had the pleasure of interviewing Don, who I consider my friend, and we've had several interviews together, and we talk in each other's podcasts all the time. And I can tell you that Don Morrison is a professional. He's a guy that actually gets the job done, and he does it in a way that depicts the Calm Professional on every level. So go over to his podcast, the Calm Professional. He's also got another one, the Six Gun Aviation, which is another one we're going to get some shows on.
Yep.
And you can catch me on the Military Historian and iHeart and about 18 other platforms at this particular point. I'm losing track of them, actually, to be honest with you.
You're a powerful man.
Yeah, I'm something. And between that and a cup of coffee, 10 cents will buy me a cup of coffee. But I want to thank you for tuning in. Don, do you have a website, actual address you can give right now so people can go on to check you out?
I don't have a website. I'm still on the social platforms. I will be having one soon that's coming. And once we do that, obviously I'll put it up on all my platforms so that you can follow on the website as well. And before I leave, I just want to say thanks, Lloyd, for having me and talking about this particular topic that a lot of people have questions about, but just probably never ask. So, hey, if you have questions, hit me up on any of my platforms, and I'll be glad to go more in depth with you.
Yep, and you can also catch me on the militaryhistorianpod@gmail.com. You can catch me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, iHeart, and all of its platforms, and that's too many to even bother telling you. And you can actually send me an email on any one of those platforms and send me questions. And sometimes I do air the questions that actually people send me. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you being here. Peace out and have a great day.
Hey, y'all, this is Don Morrison. Thank you again for watching and tuning in with us today. If you like what you heard, please hit the subscribe and like button. Let everybody else know about us. I want everybody to come and see what we have to talk about. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at thecomprofessional@gmail.com. That is all one word, thecomprofessional@gmail.com. Also, feel free to leave a comment if you like. If there's something that you want us to talk about that we haven't, let me know in the comments or in the email, and I'll see if we can get it on the show. The only criteria that I have is just be respectful of everybody else, y'all. We don't need any more hate out here in the world today, all right? So I can't wait to see you guys soon, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.